Hello, and welcome to the weekly live stream. My name is Dana Morningstar, and if you're new here, and this is our weekly question and answer / support live stream that I do every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And basically, any question is totally open. We're totally open to any questions here. There's no such thing as a stupid question or a bad question or anything. So ask away. I will do my very best to answer them. And there's lots of people that are also in the chat that answer as well. So you kind of get the benefit of a lot of our advice. If you have a question too for the live stream, if you can't make it, and I realize that they are very long, I am working on getting them split up into smaller little segments because I understand 3 hours is a lot. It's a lot to sit through. So if you have a question for the live stream and you don't want to sit through it or you can't make it for whatever reason, you can email me at deardana@thriveafterabuse.com. Again, that's deardana@thriveafterabuse.com. And that email address is in the description area down below. So let's see. Got lots of people on tonight. Venice, Italy. Terry, Amber, Courtney, Diana. Hi. Jesse are here. I think some other people are going to be joining us here shortly. Terry says, okay, I have a stupid question. Why would my ex after me, leaving him in just 8 months, marry someone after I was with them for 6.5 years? Okay, so why would he marry somebody 8 months after you were with them for 6.5 years? For supply. Everything they do is for supply. So my guess would be, food, clothing, sex, shelter, money, public image, social status, part of the manipulation. Maybe the other person really wanted to get married, and then that was kind of the vulnerability, his angle of like, okay, well, this is how I'm going to get what I want to get. I need to actually marry this person. There's lots of reasons as to why, but okay, let me scroll up here. Hey, David's here. Postmodern is here. Namal, hi. Lori. Dreamer1 says the video is not playing. Maybe try refreshing your internet, because I'm showing that it's playing over here. So let's see. Hey, Peace Pom Pom's here. Amber's here. Lots of people are hopping on. Very cool. Postmodern likes my tie-dye. Yes, this is my Stevie Nicks shirt. The shirt is like one size fits all. It's flipping huge, like huge. I don't know if you can see it. Huge. And it is the most comfortable thing ever. I love this shirt. Yeah, it's like, I feel like I might be like 2 steps away from crazy cat lady with this shirt. Or maybe like a muumuu. Like I might be really, this might actually kind of be like a muumuu. If it was longer, it'd be a muumuu, which I'm totally okay with. So just putting that out there. But thank you. And okay, let's see, let's scroll. Teresa says, hi Dana, I have a question. My narcissistic husband and I have no children and no marital assets, but he has dragged our divorce out now 6 months and it's going to trial. Do I walk away with nothing? I asked for $1,500 in credit card debt. If you're only if you're only asking for $1,500 in credit card debt, me personally, I would just walk away and consider that $1,500 tuition at the School of Hard Knocks. It's money well spent to have your sanity back. So that would be my 2 cents on it. It's the pretty low cost divorce, if you ask me. I don't know what attorney's costs are going to be if you have to actually go to court, or what all that would be, but I don't know. I would just eat the cost and drive on. So if you are not going, if you're not willing to do that, then I would at a minimum find a way to where this is not negatively impacting your sanity. Because these kinds of people have a way of dragging things on indefinitely. Any little thing that they can use to provoke and harass and agitate and just be a thorn in your claw for as long as they possibly can, they will. So I think you'll have to kind of get really clear as far as where is your line in the sand with that. And at what point do you just say this is not even worth it and get out of there? So let's see. Okay, Lori asks, how do I pull myself together to deal with work and people? He had me depending on him, and I am so emotional. I have to work or I'm going to lose everything. It's really hard. Ooh, that's a great question. There's a couple things you can do. So I guess first off, realizing that feeling this emotional is very normal given what you've been through. So sort of like, okay, we can't really fix normal, but we can try to make normal at least tolerable. Some ways that you could consider doing that would be to try to ground yourself throughout the day as much as you possibly can. And what I mean by that is, taking some deep breaths, it doesn't have to be long. It could be like a minute, 30 seconds, and just turning your attention inward, focusing on your breathing, like feeling your breath, like your chest expand and contract, and expand and contract. Doing that a few times, focusing on just being in the present moment and just slowing things down as much as possible. Cutting out caffeine will really help during this time. Even if you don't drink a lot of caffeine, even a cup of coffee, if your anxiety is already at like the red line, a cup of caffeine can really put somebody over the edge. So switching to decaf, getting exercise, even if it's just a few minutes where you go for a run or you go do something where you just burn off that anxious energy. Support groups can be really great to just vent. Taking time to have fun. And I know that might seem like you're a million miles away from maybe even wanting to have fun, let alone being able to emotionally have fun. But I think if you can realize that you don't have to wait until all of this passes, until you heal from all of this, in order to have fun back in your life. You can have gone through a really traumatic time and still have that, but you can also make time to go do things that are enjoyable. So some easy things to do that are enjoyable would be watching a comedy. Even comedy skits. Like there's a lot of comedy skits on YouTube. I'm a huge fan of like old 80s comedy, like Steve Martin, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, Dan Aykroyd, John Candy. Any of those movies always just made me laugh. And so thinking about kind of what works for you, like what do you really enjoy comedy-wise? Are there any current stand-up comics that you enjoy? And actually, you can probably even, if you like older comedies as well, you could probably find some of those on YouTube as well. listening to relaxation and guided imagery. There's a lot of free videos on YouTube that are fantastic, that you could even do that during the day if you're finding yourself really amped up. So if you have, some breaks at work, or if you take a lunch, listening to guided imagery to kind of just ground yourself and get you refocused. The nice thing with guided imagery is it kind of does a lot of the work for you. So all you have to really do is just listen and visualize. That can really help. Journaling can really help as well. There is a journal exercise that's called Morning Pages. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's basically a free write. So doesn't have to be a fancy book. I mean, it can be something like this, like a steno pad and a pen, where the whole goal is every day you write freehand 3 pages worth. And you just write whatever's on your mind. You don't judge it. You don't try to steer it in any direction. You just let whatever is sitting at the top of your brain just flow out onto the paper, and you just write and write and write and write and write. That can be, it's amazing how good that can feel, just to get out what's swimming around in our brain. Going for walks, yoga. There's a lot of like yoga videos on YouTube. A lot of this stuff is free, and odds are it's not going to be just one thing that does it for you. It's going to be a combination of things. So something that I did, this poster behind me, let me move my head. It says, I absolutely, believe that something good will happen to me and through me today. That poster I made after I was going through all of my stuff. And I made several posters very similar to that, and where I'd put up just kind of motivational phrases and words all over my house. So I was really on a mission to feed my brain as much kind of inspiration and positivity and encouragement and empowerment as humanly possible. So the kind of stuff, it really, really does help. Avoiding things that are causing you additional stress. So maybe avoiding the news. Being very particular about what you're putting in your brain right now and what you're exposing yourself to. So if you're in the car, can you create like a music playlist or a YouTube video playlist of things that help to ground you, or that bring out a lot of joy in you, or put a smile on your face? Being very intentional about what you're listening to. And realizing it's okay. Depending on your work environment, if you feel comfortable letting somebody know, hey, you know what, I'm just going through a really rough time right now. You don't have to go into any great detail that you're not comfortable doing, but letting them know, I'm going through a really rough time right now, and I'm feeling very emotionally fragile, and I'm doing my best to keep it together. Most people have gone through really rough times in their life, and most people understand that. So I hope those are some ideas. I hope those help. It's a lot of it's going to just be trial and error, but just moving in that direction. And I think too, also realizing that you're not always going to feel this intense. Like the pain is not always going to be this overwhelming or this dark or this painful. So this is it's a stage in healing. It's probably the least pleasant stage in healing, but you will get through this. So you just keep moving forward, keep doing what you need to do in order to just empower and nourish yourself. Just triple up on your self-care right now. Allowing time to take a hot bath or a hot shower after work or before work, or taking time to just, pamper yourself and be good to yourself and whatever that might mean for you. So, okay. Let's see. Let me scroll up here. Jana says, I know that my narcissistic father, wait. Okay. My narcissistic father that I've had no contact with for the last 8 months will put some cash in my bank account when Christmas comes. Should I change my bank account to avoid this issue? Well, you could, or you could, if he's going to be doing that to try to reopen contact with you, I guess it's kind of whatever you are comfortable with. So if you're very firm on like, we have no contact, I want this person completely out of my life, you could always potentially call your bank and say, I don't want any deposits that come from this person. I just want you to refuse all of them. Or if the funds do go through, you can ask your bank to transfer them back to his account, or maybe even see kind of what their process is for something like that. It's whatever you feel comfortable doing. Go with your gut. Always go with your gut. So let's see. M. Carter says, how do you get past wanting revenge? Probably everybody gets past this in different ways. For me, I guess I kind of realized early on that if I held on to that anger and that wanting to settle the score, because really I felt like there was no way for me to settle the score without basically that something, if I were to settle the score, I would wind up in jail. So I don't want to throw away my life, and I don't want to be consumed with anger either. So knowing that revenge is not going to get me what I want, then it was like, okay, well then what am I left with, right? What are we left with? And for me, I had to take all of that energy, because it's a lot of energy, and focus it and funnel it into something positive. So for me, I took all of that and funneled it into building a good life for myself. And that was my mantra for a long time of the best revenge is a good life. It's a good life. The best revenge is a good life. And because that was the one thing that I really had control over. And I knew that was building myself a good life was going to help pull me out of that mud, like that mud of negativity and anger and rage and just, it was going to free me. It was going to free me from that bog of awfulness that was the after effects of all of this. So, and here's the other thing with that. So like anger, there's a lot of energy in anger. That's kind of both the upside and downside to anger, is there's so much power behind it. If you can funnel that energy into something positive, you can really radically change your life. Anger has the power to destroy, but it has the power to create. And if you can take that and you can use it as like rocket fuel, because that's really what it is. I mean, it's intense energy. If you can visualize it being rocket fuel that you can take, and you can use that rocket fuel to take you to the next level, whatever that next level is for you. Maybe it's getting into amazing shape. Maybe it's writing a book. Maybe it's hiking the Oregon Trail. Maybe it's like going back to school. Maybe it's starting your own business. Maybe it's doing something. that's you've always kind of had on the back burner, and you're like, okay, this is the time. I've got all of this energy now. Now I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to pour all of this energy into something really, really positive, and I'm just full speed ahead. It's great. Like, it's great. You can get so much done letting anger fuel you in a positive direction. It's amazing. And then over time, once you start building a really great life for yourself, you start really enjoying that great life. And you start seeing, like, you start loving your life so much that you're almost thankful that that happened. You're like, wow, had I not gone through all of this, had I not had all of that anger, that energy from all of that anger, I would have never gotten to this place. That's powerful. That's really, really powerful stuff when you can take everything that comes across your path in this lifetime and make it work for you. Then you become unstoppable. It's powerful stuff. So I would encourage you to do that. Everything that happens to you, you are going to use for your highest and best good and for the highest and best good of others. Game on. You are not going to let this sink you. You're not. Just you make that declaration. You're going to use this to propel you to the next level. And then those feelings of revenge and everything will slowly start to disappear because you're so busy living life at the next level. I like that. Okay, Postmodern was talking about what has helped her. She got a writing prompt book from her daughter and started doing a gratitude list in the morning. Yes. Yes, I love that. That can be very powerful too, because gratitude and anger have a really hard time sharing the same space. It's kind of one or the other. It's hard to be both at the same time. Gratitude is the great, like, neutralizer to fear, to anger, to a lot of these really intense, to depression, to a lot of these really intense emotions. And sometimes, I think oftentimes, when we are feeling, like we're really stuck or we're drowning in all of this negativity, in all of this overwhelm, because it is really intense, it can feel hard to be grateful, because it's just like my whole life is falling apart around me. I have nothing. I have nothing to be grateful for. That is trauma talking. That is fear-based thinking. That's not you. That's not you. That's not accurate either. So if we can kind of regain perspective and start being grateful for the little things. So being grateful for, wow, what a beautiful sunrise. And just falling in love with being grateful for things. What a beautiful tree. What a cute squirrel. That is just what a gift. What a gift to see such a cute little animal first thing in the morning. Or any little thing. It's just seeing the world with a fresh set of eyes. Being so outrageously thankful for, like, your pet or your child or, a support group or a friend or, the other day, I think I was saying this, I was thinking about different things I was grateful for, and I was driving to work, and I was at a stoplight, and the light turned green, and I was just I had never noticed how beautiful a green light is. It just was the most, like, this glowing emerald green color. It was just spectacular. And it was weird. I even felt like, this is so weird that I just am, like, overwhelmed with amazement at how beautiful this color is. But it's at that level of what a gift it is to be able to see this color of green. Or the weather. If it's a snowy day, oh my gosh, what a great snowy day. Or if it's sunny, what a great sunny day. I'm so grateful for this. I'm so grateful that I have the health that I do have. I'm so grateful for this body. I'm so grateful that I have opportunity. I'm so grateful that I can rebuild. I can do this. I'm so grateful to be free of all of this. Even if I'm starting over at ground zero, it's okay because I'm free. I'm so grateful that I'm not alone on this path, that there's so many other people traveling this path towards health and wellness with me. Yeah, I'm so grateful. Any little thing. I'm so grateful for a toothbrush and toothpaste. Oh, isn't that so nice? Like, don't you just love brushing your teeth and how great that feels when you're done? Anything, big things, little things, and just keep going. And you just keep going and you keep going and you keep going. And once you just start really getting grateful of all of that, it really does help to ground you, and it helps to regain perspective. So let me... Yeah, Kevin says, keep some good quotes in mind when you can't see the forest through the trees. Oh, I like that. Postmodern says, I love the way a green light looks reflected on a wet street at night. It really is spectacular. Like, I might be very easy to please, but it really is. Or something, your favorite food, or even just food in general. That's really amazing when you think about it, that we live in a time where life is pretty easy. We have thermostats that set the temperature. We have hot water, clean hot water when we go take a shower or a bath. That's amazing. Royalty didn't even have that like 100 years ago, or 200 years ago. So when you think about the luxuries that we have today, it really truly is amazing. So there's so much to be thankful for, even if our world is coming down around us. Okay, Francine says, oh, where did it go? Okay. Oh, I lost it again. Oh, shoot. Where did it go? Oh, there it goes. Francine says, I am job hunting. When I find a position to apply for and think that I might like doing it, when it comes time to write my cover letter, I get overwhelmed with paralyzing anxiety. What to do? So, a tip that I often use when I get overwhelmed with anxiety, or if I just get an overwhelm period, which happens to me quite often, is I set a timer on my phone. And so I will set it for like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to work on this task for the next 10 minutes, and then I'm going to stop. And I have found that doing that, it's like the hardest part is getting started. And even if you really do stop after 10 minutes, you've got enough forward momentum in that 10 minutes that picking up that task where you left off and starting it again isn't this monumental task because you've already started it. So starting is oftentimes where a lot of that anxiety comes from. So yeah, I would encourage you, set a timer, just go beast on that task for that amount of time, and then go from there. Yeah, Postmodern says, I love being able to buy groceries and have a kitchen. Yes, isn't that just such a gift? Yes, people are saying, oh, I'm so grateful to have a roof over my head. Oh, yes, right? And we don't have to wait. We don't have to wait until our life is totally healed, that we are making a ton of money, or that we have this dream house in order to be happy and thankful. Like, we can be that now. There's so much that is right with you, and there is so much that is right with your life right now. There really, really, really is. So, um, Postmodern says, did she just say that there is so much that is right with you? Yes. Yes, she did say that. Yes, I was saying, even when our life is falling apart, there really is so much right. There's so much right with you, and there's so much right with your life. And just don't ever forget that. Like, it truly is just such a gift. And we're all here to just experience this. And it's the highs and the lows. And this is where personal growth comes from, you know? And I know it's so hard when you're like neck deep in overwhelm and pain and all of these uncomfortable emotions. But really, the reason all of this is so painful is because it has to be. Because it has to be, because it's not for you. This is not a rejection, this is a redirection. And it has to hurt this bad. And so oftentimes, right, in life, we have to hit rock bottom in order to realize I'm out. Like this is not what I want my life to be about. This is not for me. Something's got to give. Something needs to happen. Something different needs to happen. This pain, even though it might sound awful to say, this pain is really your friend. It's there to tell you, hey, I'm your wake-up call. This is not how you deserve to be treated. Not only do you not want this person in your life, you don't want anybody even like this person in your life. Like, this isn't what love is about. Love doesn't hurt. This is a million miles away from love. Like, this is abuse. And this is not what you were here for. This is not how you are meant to be treated. Okay, let me scroll up. Mishmash asks, do they know that they are creating such fear? Is fear a normal part of it too? I think some do. Some do intentionally create fear. There's a term, it's called, sadism, or being sadistic. And that's when a person really enjoys causing pain in somebody else. So fear, pain, kind of bullying, they enjoy getting that reaction out of somebody else. So yes, some people do that intentionally, and some people just have such a cold, cruel, calloused level of indifference that they just truly don't care. Like, they're just going to do whatever they want to do. They don't care that it's going to put somebody else in a bad place financially or emotionally or physically or what have you, because it's just all about them. So, but fear, I think for a lot of people, fear is a very normal part of this. Especially if, I think fear comes about in many different ways, but if you were suddenly discarded and you've been left, without, where your whole world is up in turmoil, right? Everything is uncertain. And it's this idea of like, well, I'm not sure how I'm going to pay bills. I'm not sure where I'm going to live. I'm not sure. I've never lived alone. There's a lot of different change in general is scary, but having your whole life uprooted like this can be absolutely terrifying. And so, yeah, a lot of people experience a great amount of fear. What helps to calm that fear down is to start thinking about options. not even necessarily a plan. A plan will come together when a plan needs to come together. But thinking about options. So what could you do? Right? Like if you don't have a job, okay, where could I go work? Or how could I make ends meet? And writing down all of your options, even if you don't want to act on some of them, like some of your options might be, well, maybe I could take out a loan, or maybe I could exist on credit cards for a little bit, or maybe I could work 3 part-time jobs, or maybe I could go back to school, or like just listing out all of those different options. And then once you realize, okay, I have options. I'm in this hole, financially, emotionally, physically, what have you, but I can climb out of it. And here's some different ways that here's some options that I have that can help get me out of that hole. So now I just need to figure out which ones appeal to me the most. And then that'll help dissipate that fear, because fear oftentimes is it's always kind of worst case scenario, and a lot of times things that we fear never even happen. So okay, let's see. Camping Fool says they have total control when they've got you in fear. Yes, that's a very insightful point. Yes. Okay, Evie says, Dana, can you talk about abuse amnesia? Even when I just hear from or see my ex around, I totally forget about our mean side. It's incredible how I can immediately forget. Yeah, so that often has to do with cognitive dissonance and, denial. And if we are in a situation, okay, that is meeting some sort of need for us, then we have an emotional investment in that situation working out. So let me think, how can I kind of better describe this? So let's say if a person is starved out physically, okay, and let me stop the chat. It's really hard for me to, okay. So if a person is starved out physically and they haven't eaten in, let's say, like 5 days, okay, if they walk past a trash can and they see an old moldy sandwich in there, if they're really hungry, they're going to eat that sandwich. And in order for them to be able to like, justify eating something like that, they're going to have to tell themselves all different kinds of things. So they might tell themselves, well, it's not that moldy, or it's only moldy on one side, or, it's okay. It's enough to get me through. They're going to make peace with that situation because that's the action that they need to take. Same thing, like if you've ever smoked before. Here's probably maybe a better, more relatable example. If you've ever smoked before and you realize, oh my gosh, I don't have cigarettes and I don't have a car, or it's late and it's snowing, I don't want to go to the store, then people start fishing cigarette butts out of an ashtray. It's disgusting, right? And they'll smoke those cigarette butts, and they'll justify to themselves why they are doing that. And it's because they're like, well, it's not that bad, or I don't want to be, I don't want to be wasteful, or they make it into something that's okay. Same kind of thing if we're emotionally starved out. So if this person has been our whole world for frankly any length of time, especially if there was a lot of like love bombing and attention and affection and just like all of this, like showers of like compliments and conversation and attention and just all of this, if we're starved out emotionally and we know that we can get those emotional needs met by that person, we're going to gloss over all of the other reasons as to why that's problematic. That's why. So people do this kind of stuff in a wide variety of situations. So if you're glossing over her abusive side, it's because you were getting some sort of benefit out of like the good side of her. Generally, it's a sign that, especially in relationships, that there's some sort of like empty bucket that needs to be addressed. And I talk about this, and I put together a playlist the other day. It's something like, you can't tell if they're charming or harming or something like that, or why you want to date a narcissist. And it talks about the whole empty buckets thing. So basically, if we're starved out emotionally, but a lot of us don't even realize that we're starved out emotionally because it's how we've been for a very long time. So if you've been walking around for a long time feeling unloved or unimportant or lonely, these kinds of things, and a person who comes along and does all that love bombing and is very quick to be like your instant best friend and instant partner and just kind of this instant relationship where after the third date, there's, or even first date where there's like a lot of sex and there's a lot of attention and there's just all of this intensity, it's filling that bucket. And you're going to be primed to run into problematic people, or I shouldn't say just run into them. You're going to be primed to get tangled up with them again until you address that vulnerability and until you fill that bucket. So once you start getting to the place where you're not feeling lonely, you're not feeling unloved or unimportant. So where you are feeling loved and important and appreciated and acknowledged, and that you have a good support system. Once all that's in place, it's a lot easier to be choosy about who you let in your life because you're not starved out. Just like it's a lot easier to walk past a moldy sandwich that's in a garbage can if you've already eaten. It's a lot easier to not smoke the cigarette butts that are in the ashtray if you have a pack of cigarettes in the car. So if you can meet those needs, if you can kind of dig your well before you're thirsty, I guess is what I'm saying, then it's a lot easier to stay away from problematic people, because that's how, especially covert people, how people get tangled up with them. It's the covert abusive people and whirlwind romances tend to go hand in hand. And whirlwinds they're never, it's just like 99.95% of the time, they're highly problematic situations. The person might not necessarily be abusive, but the problem with them or with the situation is that you don't know what you're getting into because it's a whirlwind. So anything that starts off hot and heavy, it tends to either dissipate quickly or it'll leave your life in shambles. So something that I recommend often for people, because when we do start slipping in, so that this term, this like what you're calling abuse amnesia, this cognitive dissonance, it sets in like a fog. And so in that fog, like sets in and then it raises and it lowers and it raises. And so people will be like, you get into this and you're like, oh my gosh, they're so amazing. They're such this great time together and it's so perfect and blah, blah. And like that fog sets in. And the next thing you know, like you're confused until something makes that fog lift. And generally what makes that fog lift is some sort of like really problematic behavior where you're reminded of, this is a problem. Like you're being lied to, cheated on, stolen from, or manipulated in some way. You can save yourself a lot of that pain by making a list. And I call this the for when you miss him or her list. So writing down every single thing, different lies they've told you, different painful things they've done. So when you do feel, if you feel that pull of nostalgia, and that abuse amnesia starts setting in again, you can go back and you can read that list, and that list is gonna knock you awake. You're like, oh, right, right. Because it's amazing. It is amazing the stuff that we can forget. It's amazing the stuff that we can justify. We all do it all of the time, throughout the day, not just in abusive relationships, but in general. It's part of cognitive dissonance, and it's how we justify our behavior. So, okay. Mishmash says, how I was is so gross. Now I wonder if I am a narcissist because I am such a people pleaser. I'm worried about they what they think and what others think. Okay, so let me stop the chat here real quick. So it does, you're not a narcissist if you're a people pleaser. It's kind of two very different things. Narcissists aren't people pleasers, they're self pleasers. It's all about them all of the time, unless they need it to be about other people in order to get what they want. So if you're feeling that you're such a people pleaser, then those are some great words that often point to boundaries needing to get into alignment. And this is something that I think, frankly, everybody can benefit from, is examining what their standards are and what healthy boundaries are for them. Especially after you've been through any type of abusive relationship. Because even if you feel like you had healthy boundaries before, odds are, if you've gone through a narcissistically abusive relationship, everything has been blurred. Like everything has been blended and blurred and skewed, and it almost requires like a complete reset of everything. So, some good ways to do this. There's free, well, I think any support group on narcissistic abuse can help with that. I know this is not a very popular term. I would have been really upset if had people have been talking about it to me back when I was going through this. But if you look up some groups on like codependency, because and I'm not saying that you're codependent, but they often talk about boundaries and how to set them, and the focus of like a group on codependency, the focus is on boundaries, and then the focus is on exploring boundaries and setting boundaries and practicing boundaries and just kind of getting back in alignment. There are many free groups out there. They're called CODA. It's Codependence Anonymous groups. So I believe they also have groups online that are also free. So that's something to consider checking out, even if you are kind of like a fly on the wall and you just listen to people. I think there's a lot that can be gained always. I think there's always a lot that can be gained from listening to other people that are in a similar situation and their thought process and their aha moments and how they're putting the pieces back together. So I think that would be worth exploring. Rainey says, Dana, the last relationship felt right. There was no love bombing. Everything went comfortably slow and steady till about 7 months in. Then the lies came out. What is that about? Some people hide it better than others. So not all problematic people love bomb. Not all narcissists love bomb. So a lot of them do, because it tends to be the most effective, fastest way to kind of lure somebody in. But, sometimes it's more of like they're just slow and steady. And it's one of those things we have to, at all times, be paying attention to how we feel and in trying to see the situation as clearly as possible. And then also knowing that if at any given time problematic behavior starts surfacing, lying, cheating, stealing, addiction, abuse, any of that stuff starts surfacing, that we value ourselves enough to get out of there. It does not matter if it's been 7 days, 7 months, 7 years, 17 years, 77 years. That we're not putting up with that in our life. Like, these are our standards, and other people need to meet our standards or we're gone. So, yeah, but that can be very unnerving when you've been in a relationship for 7 months and didn't see any problematic behavior until then. I would encourage you, because hindsight's always 2020. And of course, this is never to say that this is your fault by any stretch. All of life in general is one giant learning lesson. Okay? But to reflect back and ask yourself, okay, were there any red flags? And if so, what were they? Because if you can be really honest with yourself about potential red flags, then it'll better help you to see kind of, okay, what was I glossing over? How did they go about hiding it? Just so you can be better prepared for the next time around. Okay, let's see. Let's see, hold on, let me. Yep, okay. Find Peace says there were never any red flags, but there was just a gut feeling that something wasn't right. Yes, and sometimes that's all we get is that that feeling that something's not right. This is kind of like it's advanced, like getting to know yourself, like senior level, PhD level, getting to know yourself. So kind of freshman level is knowing what abusive behavior is and what it feels like. That's kind of how this getting into true alignment with ourselves starts off. So it's seeing overt behavior, like seeing overt problematic behavior for the problematic behavior that it really is, because overt stuff is the most easiest to see. So that's a good place to start, right? And then as we kind of get that down, then we kind of move on to, okay, examining what does like more covert behavior look like. So that can be more, like the gaslighting, the feelings of confusion, self-doubt, anxiety, these kinds of things, circular conversations. Then kind of the next level up is to be learning to pay attention to how you really feel during all of this. How do you feel around this person? How do you feel around other people? How do you feel in your environment? And then kind of the more advanced level is exactly what you're talking about, which is it's getting so in tune with all of that other stuff. So when you have those moments where something it is just off, it might just be the way that a person smiles. It's something that you can't even quite pinpoint. It might be something like the way that they look at the waitress, the way that they just make some sort of comment that you're like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's that problematic, but something about it just didn't sit right with me. To know, to be in tune enough with how you feel when you're around problematic behavior, that you're able to see stuff like that and know, okay, I'm out of here. Like I've been down this road before. I know how I feel when I experience stuff that's really off. She said, he was so perfect. I remember thinking how this was too good to be true. And that's another big sign that there's something off if somebody is too good to be true. Because that's a sign. That's a sign that there's a lot of mirroring going on, that there's a lot of, that you're not seeing the person for who they really are. Because normal people they don't come across like that. They don't come across as too good to be true. They come across as maybe likable or interesting or enjoyable. They don't come across as charming. They don't come across as a soulmate. They don't come across as everything you've been looking for. So those kinds of intense feelings, like feeling that you've just won the relationship lottery, that this is the perfect person for you, that they're saying and doing all of the right things, that you're feeling that intense connection being established in a short period of time, those are all red flags. So, Postmodern says, I get mad if somebody mirrors me. Yes, and mirroring to some degree is normal. It's how people tend to bond and connect with each other on a more subconscious level. It's when you're in tune enough with mirroring to know what it really is like the body language wise, you're just aware of all of the subtleties about it, then you can catch on. You're like, I am being freaking manipulated, and I don't appreciate it. Like, that's not cool. And you can tell the difference between like normal mirroring and like manipulative mirroring. So let me think of an example. Like normal mirroring. So, for example, if I'm with a patient, okay, and maybe they're not well, okay, they're feeling really paranoid, or they've just gone through some sort of traumatic situation or what have you. I will intentionally do what I can do in order to try to, because I'm only with them for a short amount of time, to try to establish that I'm safe. So I might sit down. If they don't make eye contact with me, I will avoid making eye contact with them. If they are using certain words, I'm going to raise or lower my vocabulary to their level to make them feel more comfortable. So these are certain things that I do to try to mirror them, to let them know that I'm not a threat. So it's with good intentions. People that use mirroring intentionally with bad intentions, I don't know, you can just tell. Like, you can just tell when something's really off. Where like you cross your legs, they cross their legs. You order a beer, they order a beer. Whatever you like, they like. That you kind of get the feeling that they are like a social chameleon. That whatever the situation calls for, that's what they are. If they told you originally that they're Catholic, but now they find out that you're not, you're just spiritual, and all of a sudden, well, they're not really that Catholic, that they're really just more spiritual. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, they just starting to like become this perfect partner. That's a huge red flag. Let's see. Yep. Irene says, how about suddenly becoming a devout Christian like me? Yes. that kind of thing. Whatever you are, they are. I think especially, yes, Maria, sorry, go ahead, re-ask your question. I didn't see it. This mirroring of certain things like religion, like Christianity, like probably any faith really, is probably very common because there's certain things that people tend to have that instant trust with. Religion is one of them. So I'm always very, very leery of any place that advertises that they are like a Christian company. Like that to me is a huge, and they might be, and they might have good intentions, but how I interpret that is people that are appealing to a person's sense of like morals and values and ethics. So if you truly are Christian, you don't need to tell me that you're Christian. Like I'll be able to tell that in your actions. So, and I'm not saying that all like Christian businesses are, manipulative, but to me that strikes me as being very manipulative. I don't like that. So I steer clear of businesses and people in general that continually tell me how on the level and honest they are. Like, because they shouldn't have to do that. But in relationships, people often have their guard down. It's this idea of if I meet a person and they're at church, then we think, oh, well, they're somehow safe. Or if they're a police officer, or if they are a teacher or a therapist, even, that we have our guard down and think, okay, well, this person is trustworthy and safe, and that might not be the case because they're people. And especially when it comes to religion, one of the best hiding places for evil is behind good. So I think there's a lot of highly problematic people that get away with what they're doing in religious circles. So let's see here. Yeah, Bear, hi Bear. Bear was saying, learn to spot a fake smile versus a genuine smile. There are facial muscles involved and you can actually see it. Okay, so quick story about that. Yes, so a genuine smile will travel up to a person's eyes. So here's an example of like a fake smile. Well, I don't know. I've got crow's feet. So like it looks like it's traveling up to my eyes, but it's not. It's just my wrinkles. But it's a smile from like here down. So it's that fake kind of Miss America smile, where it's just kind of like, oh, hi, hello, hello, hello. It's not up here. A real smile is big, and you'll see a person, these lines will scrunch up, and it's just this, it travels up to their face. I was going to tell you. So I got Botox a while ago, and I got it in like throughout my forehead and in my crow's feet here. And it was the funniest thing. So after, it takes like a few days for it to set in. And after it set in, like, it was the weirdest thing because I smile a lot and I laugh a lot. And that, I think people are used to seeing that with me. And so, like, when I would smile, my eyes would get tiny like this, but my wrinkles here, my laugh lines weren't there. And it was the weirdest thing. And people would ask me, they're like, are you okay? Something seems different. And they were really taken aback by like why I looked so different. And I really think it had to do with these laugh lines weren't there. A little bit of trivia there. Let's see, there was another, Vinny asks, Dana, can you talk about normal ego versus narcissistic ego? That's a big topic. Maybe a better way to kind of talk about that would be in terms of, sorry, my nose, it just, like healthy narcissism versus like unhealthy narcissism. So like a healthy ego, because we all have one, is this concept of like a healthy sense of self. Ooh, gosh, sorry, the light bulb just burned out. So it's a healthy sense of self. So it's this idea of, yeah, you know what? I am capable. I am like competent. I know who I am. I know what I'm about. I know where I'm going. I know my likes. I know my dislikes. It's nice to be validated by other people, but I don't need that. I can be in a room full of people that totally disagree with me, but I have enough belief in myself and my ideas that I'm going to just go forward anyhow. It's just really having a solid sense of self. An so that would be considered like healthy narcissism. And I kind of cringe with that term because it's that the word narcissism has such a understandably like negative connotation. So it's hard to kind of see it in like a positive way. It's sort of like saying, well, healthy abuse, right? Like there is no such thing. But healthy narcissism is that's what that is. A healthy sense of self, a healthy sense of ego. Unhealthy narcissism is where a person's sense of self is like to such an extreme where it's not about like our self-worth or our confidence in our abilities, but it's more of that mindset of now it's not like I think I can do this, I know I can do this. It's more of a now it's a me versus you. Like I can do this, but now you can't. It's that competition mindset. It's the power and control over other people and over situations, and it's it's what's considered like the false self. So there's kind of this idea that narcissists, as they develop, kind of get stuck in this certain developmental stage where a healthy sense of self doesn't develop for whatever reason. It could be, generally it's thought to be due to some sort of like, trauma or dysfunctional family or traumatic event or events in their life, to where their true self is not allowed to properly develop. Generally because they have a narcissist in their life. Because when you've got a narcissist in your life, then it's that attitude of like there can be only one. So if other people are not allowed to have their individuality, because it's all about this narcissistic person. And so everybody around them has to sacrifice themselves in order to make room for this narcissistic person. So if a person doesn't ever develop that true self, they develop that false self. And so that false self is grandiose. It's, competitive. It's kind of like this hungry ghost. It's always wanting more, 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 me, me, me. It's very immature. It's very insatiable. It's very problematic. It's that false self is very fragile. So narcissists, even though they might seem like really confident and really, like arrogant and all of that, all of that kind of stuff stems from insecurity. Because people that really like who they are, they're comfortable with who they are, they don't walk around feeling the need to prove themselves or to impress other people or to tear other people down. Like they just realize, okay, like I can do my thing and then you can do your thing, and I'm not concerned about your thing. I don't need to prove anything. I don't need to have power and control over you. Like I don't like do you. Like I'm going to run my own race. Like that's healthy narcissism. So I hope that that kind of separates out those two concepts, because it is interesting and confusing kind of all at the same time. Yes. Ask the Young One says, the false self buried the true self long ago in a narcissist. They are entitled to all things because they feel they should have it. So, yes, I agree completely. It's that level of entitlement. That's part of like the big problem with narcissism, and why it can be so hard for a person that's so steeped in their problematic behavior, because they feel entitled to act like that. They feel entitled. I mean, who was it? Charlie Sheen, I think, is a great example. You know, the whole thing with his all of his addiction and his you know, highly problematic behavior, and you know, here he was engaged and he's HIV positive and he's out sleeping with all different kinds of people, and didn't tell his fiance and didn't tell different people on set that, you know, like, and he was saying, like, he's like, oh, I'm winning. And it was like, no, dude, like, you're a million miles away from winning, but you don't even see it. Like, you don't even see it. You are so lost and blinded by like your addiction and your ego that you do not even see that your life is a frickin' train wreck. And it's because he just thinks, well, you know, it's that attitude of entitlement. Like, I should be able to just come to work whenever I want to come to work because I'm such an amazing actor. And I should be able to just sleep with whoever I want to sleep with because I'm Charlie Sheen. And I should just be able to do whatever I want to do. And other people just need to live with it. That's what that attitude of entitlement looks like in motion. Really, really problematic. Kevin was saying, I don't feel the need to tear other people down, but I do feel like I have the need to impress people. Well, and you know, so narcissistic behavior, so that need to impress, that need to even tear other people down, some of that stuff is normal to an extent. So if we become threatened, if people become threatened by something, it's very normal for them. And again, it depends on like your own self-esteem and like kind of what you've got going in your own life, like your own level of happiness, to how you view other people. So if a person's at a low place in their life, then they're feeling very insecure and very vulnerable by that. It's very common for them to, you know, gossip and to talk a lot of trash about other people, and to, you know, want to tear them down, which is kind of like the beginnings of abusive behavior, right? And those feelings of inadequacy, of like, I need to prove myself, I need to impress other people. You know, those are all signs that that's something that's worthy of your time, our time in general, to examine and to figure, okay, where is this coming from? If I'm feeling the need to impress other people, you know, why am I feeling the need to impress other people? So, and that level of being so fragile and being so vulnerable and being so hypersensitive. So there's this term, right? So you have narcissistic injury, and then you have the term narcissistic rage. And so a narcissistic injury tends to happen whenever they are challenged or crossed in some sort of way, either real or perceived. Where it gets really crazy is where it's perceived, and you're like, this person's going bananas, and I didn't even say anything. Like, they're just so easily triggered, but it's because like they're so vulnerable, like their ego is so fragile that they just cannot handle any criticism that's real or perceived. So interesting stuff. And then so when that ego when they do suffer that narcissistic injury, it tends to lead very quickly to narcissistic rage because now they're feeling attacked. And when they feel attacked, they lash out. And it's that, again, it's the whole thing of like me versus you. Now I have to tear this other person down because they're somehow like a threat to me. Very, very interesting, like highly problematic stuff. But I think when you can see how deep this stuff goes, so it's not just about this person needs to stop yelling, this person needs to stop hitting. It's not, abuse is not as simplistic as that. This is like deep rooted stuff. There's reasons that people act the way that they do. They're oftentimes like stem from their childhood. It's never about their current target or their current target's behavior. That's one of the biggest problems, and I think misunderstandings about abusive relationships is people tend to think, oh, well, what's your part in this? Or what did you do to make them act this way? And it's like, no, this person, that narcissistic person is not in reality. I view it as a form of like functional psychosis. Like they are not in reality. They are, because there is no them, like there is no they. For they to be in reality. Like there is that false self. They're living through that false self, which is like a 6-year-old, and it's incredibly fragile and it's very highly reactive. And these are like unaddressed emotional wounds, generally from childhood. So this is why their behavior is so erratic and dramatic and emotional and seems to come out of nowhere. You could say something like, and this is why walking on eggshells doesn't help, because their behavior is not predictable, in large part because it's like they're just triggered. So maybe they're triggered because one day you made vegetable soup and their mother, who was abusive, also made them vegetable soup. And so now they're triggered and they're going on the attack. To them, it might feel very valid, like to have that response, even though it's not, right? Like it's not okay to yell at somebody. It's not okay to call names. It's not okay to be abusive. But it's like they just are not there. And like you're dealing, it's like you're just dealing with a very traumatized person, and traumatized people tend to traumatize other people. Hurt people hurt people. But I think when you start realizing this behavior, how they act is just them. Like it's just them. And it's going to always be them until they get this stuff figured out, which generally they don't, because they feel entitled to act the way that they do. And they feel, it's that level, it's that false self, it's that grandiosity, and it's that feeling of, well, I'm right, everybody else is wrong. So they oftentimes don't realize that they have a problem. Everybody else in their mind has a problem. It's kind of that saying with abusive people, it's that, well, look at what you made me do. Well, why didn't you have dinner ready on time? I wouldn't have had to yell at you or hit you had you had dinner ready on time. Or because you're expected to be a mind reader. But that's the thing, like you can't read somebody's mind because it's not logical. Their behavior is not logical. It's them being continually just triggered. So I think when you can see how problematic and deep-seated their behavior really is, I think it can give a lot of people almost closure in a way where it's like, okay, this person has really got some major stuff they need to work on, and they're a million miles away from even seeing that they have a problem, let alone being ready, willing, and able to work on it. So this we're not talking like, 3 or 4 sessions in therapy. Like we're talking intensive, deep stuff with a person who's ready, willing, and able to actually go. Maybe. And then having to like unlearn all of his problematic behavior, relearn, appropriate behavior. That's a long uphill battle. And I think when you fully see what you're dealing with, it can make it a lot easier to kind of just walk away, and just realize my love can't save this person. Like it, trying to talk sense to them isn't going to help. Like, they have to go down that road alone. Oh gosh, there's so many good comments here. Finding Peace says, I'm really frustrated because my husband only married me so he could use me in every way, including taking my money. And he did it legally by only being married to me. This is love fraud. Yes. Yes, it is. They're oftentimes that degree of selfishness, they're con artists. And it's it's devastating on so many levels. And I'm so sorry that that happened to you. Okay, I wanted to say something too. When I was talking about hurt people, this isn't to say that their behavior is somehow okay or acceptable or anything other than it just kind of gives us insight into potentially why they do what they do. Again, doesn't make it okay, doesn't make it anything other than you're just dealing with a person who's got a lot of issues. Lauren asks, the narcissist I dated is also an alcoholic. Now that I'm a year or so out of it, I've often wondered if a lot of the things he did was due to his alcoholism. Potentially. But still, being an alcoholic is a problem. Like, frankly, just as big of a problem as any other type of behavior. Ask anybody that's been married to an addict or an alcoholic. That will destroy your life, having a person with an active addiction like that in your life. Because they lie, they steal, they manipulate, they're driven by that addiction. And it's impossible to have a relationship with a person who has an active addiction because they're not there. Like, it's the addiction that's driving them. And, it's a long, hard road. And they need to get well and reconnect with themselves and heal themselves before they're actually ready to be able to get into a relationship. Because a relationship, it's based on honesty, it's based on trust, it's based on open, honest, sincere, solutions-oriented communication. If any one of those elements are missing, then it's not going to be a healthy relationship. All of those elements need to be present. Sort of like baking a cake. You need flour, you need sugar, you need water, you need an egg, you need some oil. If you miss any one of those ingredients, the cake's not going to fully form. And when you're dealing with somebody who has an active addiction, you're not dealing with somebody who's going to be honest, who's going to be trustworthy, who's going to be able to have open, honest, sincere, solutions-oriented communication. I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm not saying, that anything other than they've got their own stuff that they need to figure out and to heal from before they're able to be in a healthy relationship with anybody, because they're not even in a healthy relationship with themselves. And that's, if we're not in a healthy relationship with ourselves, we can't be in a healthy relationship with somebody else. Like, it's just not going to work. Rainey says, I'm hurt, but I don't hurt others. That statement that hurt people always confuses me. That's a really valid point. However, I would say that So you're saying that you are hurt, but you don't hurt others. Those things tend to go one of two ways. So if we're hurt, we either lash out and hurt others, or we end up hurting ourselves. And so that's kind of this, hurt people tend to have really skewed boundaries. So kind of labels aside, like putting aside labels of like narcissist and codependent and all of that. If we're talking about people being hurt, when a person goes through some sort of trauma, especially that's long lasting, like a dysfunctional childhood, they have a skewed set of what's appropriate behavior, what's deal breaker behavior, who they are, what their standards are, just kind of all of it. And because we all are our own baseline for normal, it can take a person decades to realize the areas in their life that are out of alignment, because we just have been living this way for so long. And so if you're finding yourself with this pattern of behavior, especially if it's a pattern of behavior where you're in these like one-sided dynamics, where you're continually finding yourself kind of sinking yourself to save friendships or to save relationships or to, save, family dynamic relationships. If you're continually feeling like resentful or like a doormat or taken advantage of or taken for granted, if you are finding yourself with partners that have active addictions, that are abusive, that are cheating, lying, stealing, manipulating, treating you with disrespect and a lack of dignity, these are all warning signs that something's off. Something might have been off before, like unresolved stuff from childhood that tends to carry over and repeat as we get older, or it's maybe even unresolved stuff as an adult that's now causing us problems. And so from my experience, I did not realize that, because I was hurt too, I did not realize that my boundaries and sense of self and all of that was out of alignment. Like, I didn't realize that for like the longest time, because it's just how things had always been. And I think too, for a lot of people, especially that err on the side of being like an overgiver, we tend to associate those kinds of personality traits as something that's being very positive. Like, it's very positive to be helpful and caring and compassionate and giving, but only to a point. And again, none of this stuff is like discussed or taught or probably even properly role modeled, like for the vast majority of us, right? So we have to kind of muck our way through lives, learning all these lessons the hard way to realize what's not working for us. So, for me, it took enough pain and enough of a desire to want to fix my life, just to figure out what the heck is going on. Because I'm like, okay, after a couple of these relationships, this is not a coincidence. So what am I missing? I somebody please tell me, like, what am I missing? Because I don't get it. I don't get it. And what it was that, hold on, my internet is being weird. What is this? Hello? Is, my relationship with myself was out of alignment. And so, yeah, I wasn't lashing out and hurting others. If anything, I was being overly giving other people second and 20-second chances, and I was being overly giving and overly compassionate and overly caring and giving, and not at the expense of myself, of my sanity, of my safety, of my health, of all kinds of things, not realizing that my behavior was hurting myself. So I hope I'll be curious to see if that, what other people have to say about that in your own life. So, okay, Maria had a question. Let me see if I can scroll up. Find Peace says, I'm really lucky to be alive. It took my counselor to tell me to get out of my marriage due to my safety. I recall her mentioning how my ex reminded her of Scott Peterson. Good. I'm so glad that she just flat out said that. Because I think a lot of people, counselors, therapists, are very hesitant. They kind of come from this approach of like, I want to support the person in kind of exploring all options and then picking the one that's best for them. That can be a really great approach, assuming that a person's not in an abusive relationship. Because if a person's in an abusive relationship or out of an abusive relationship, and this was my struggle with this, is I was trying to make sense of everything. I had been so heavily manipulated that so relying on me to find my way out of the fog, it was like the blind leading the blinder. So I'm really glad that you were able to get a counselor who had called it like it was and was like, this is your safety is in danger. You need to leave. This guy sounds like a very charming con artist and deadly. Yeah, Lucy. Hi, Lucy. Let's see. Lucy, I think this might be in the middle of another question, but she says, you have to learn to trust how you feel. Even if you were trained to not trust how you feel, you must trust how you feel. Yeah, and it's kind of like, it almost feels like this Zen riddle, right? Like, how do you trust how you feel when you don't know if you can trust your judgment, or you've had certain feelings that you haven't been allowed to have, maybe your whole life, like anger, like sadness, these kinds of things. So yeah, moving forward and learning to trust how you feel. So I talk about this a lot, but it does help to start exploring how you feel in ways that, like, you're not emotionally invested in. Asking yourself, like, how do you feel? And I use the example of like an emotional scale of like 0. I mean, you could even say -10 to +10. So -10 would be something that's ice cold, like, ugh. 0 is like just kind of a general neutral. +10 is super excited, super jazzed. Yes, absolutely, that's it, right? And then going around and examining things. How do you feel? So kind of getting a baseline, right? How do you feel? How do you feel? Okay, here's my one. This mermaid. I really like this. I really like this mermaid. So for me, I feel this. I really enjoy this. This is probably like an 8 or a 9 for me. My little dove. This is my reminder to follow your peace or go with your gut. I love this little guy. Like, this is a 9 or a 10. I just really like this thing. This poster behind me is like a 10. This thing, my Buddha board 2.0 that I freaking love, is a 10. This shirt, I love it, is a 10. This coffee mug, I got this when I was in Sicily. This is a 10. I love this thing. It makes me smile every time I see it. It's a guy, like a little orange guy with oranges. I think that's really cute. Gel pens, these Pilot pens, these ink pens. I flipping love these things. This is a 10. I love writing with pens like this. It makes me crazy writing with ballpoint pens. That's my diva. Like that's about as diva as I get. You know, this, okay, here's this mouse pad is super flimsy and it's slick and I hate it. And I have no idea why I even own it. It barely even works. It'd probably work better if I used a magazine. This thing is probably like a 2. It's time for me to upgrade. My new phone case. It's a little wallet phone case thing all in one. And I just got it. I like it for the most part. This is maybe like I'm going to say like a 7. It bothers me that there's no real place for me to actually put money. And then I can't shut it if I actually do have money on me, which is very rare. But I can't, like I have money now and I can barely shut it. But I like it. I like it enough. So going around, okay, the point being, going around your environment, things that you're not emotionally attached to, and paying attention to how you feel, and then why. And then once you kind of get used to that, transferring that to people, to relationships, to friendships, to your work environment, to your career choice in general, to anything and everything in your life. And so once you start getting more in tune with that, then you'll be able to know how you feel and you'll be able to know why. And this can take some practice and it can take some doing, but it's significant. So if we catch ourselves saying, I don't know, that's a sign that there's cognitive dissonance afoot. Because we do know. We always know. We always know. We always know how we feel about something. If we feel like we don't know, it's because we do know but wish we didn't. So if you catch yourself saying, I just don't know, that's a really great sign to take a few steps back and to get real with yourself and to examine, okay, like if I did know, what would I say? And it can be hard, especially if we're talking about relationships, because there is that emotional investment there. And if we do want something to work out, then we're going to oftentimes, minimize the problematic behavior that we're experiencing, and we're going to focus on we're going to try to talk ourselves into it, like why it's not a problem. But then if you keep feeling that split energy of like, I don't know, should I stay, should I go, should I stay, should I go, is this good, is this bad, I don't know, then that's a sign that most likely we need to go, but we don't want to, so we're kind of, we're not ready to go. So we're focusing on all the reasons we should stay. Hold on a second. What is this? This firewall alert. I don't know. It doesn't look good. So let me... Oh, good. Julie says, Dana, my ex-narcissist contacted me recently, and then I found out he had just gotten married. I realized how grateful I am to no longer be with him, and you were a huge part in my healing. Thank you. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Yay, yay. And what a victory, right? To experience something like that and be at the place where You're like, wow, so glad that's not me. Instead of being emotionally devastated and being like, what's wrong with me? And why didn't he pick me? And I wish he was back. And you see that stuff clearly and you're like, I dodged a bullet on that one. I'm so thankful that that is not me. Yes, Maria, please re-ask your question. D5054 says mouse mat equals a -1. It caused a firewall alert. I might have angered the technology gods by criticizing my mouse mat. Venice asks Dana, I rejected a narcissist during his love bombing phase because I found him creepy. He said, shame on me for thinking that he was creepy, but now he wants to apologize. Is this sincere or revenge? I guess the bigger question is, does it matter? Like, if you find this person creepy, I would just distance yourself from it and not have any further communication with them. Because that's all you need to know. Like, if they're creeping you out for whatever reason, then distance yourself. Realistically, it's not revenge. It's most likely a manipulation to try to suck you back in. But again, that doesn't matter. What matters is you had the vibe that things were off, and you need to listen to that. Dee says, hello from Scotland. Dana, hello. So if you are from Scotland, then you have heard my Highlander impersonation of the narcissistic idea of like there can be only one. My Scottish accent imitation is awful, so I apologize if you have heard that. Yep, Truth Seeker says, Venice, that behavior has covert manipulator written all over it. Trust your gut. She says, I know he knows where I live and he is obsessively talking about me. That's okay. He can do whatever he wants to do. This is all about you trusting your gut and moving yourself to a place where you feel safe and sane. So if things are already starting out to where you're like, this guy gives me a bad vibe, his behavior is problematic, you know, like these are the signs. So distancing yourself to a place where you're not having to experience this. You don't have control over his behavior. You can't make him stop talking about you. You can't make him do any of that. All you can do is just distance yourself, just cut contact, just don't give a reaction. So it's the whole, gray rock approach to it. So it's, you're just like, meh, you're just emotionally neutral. Like you're just not giving a reaction. You're not showing that you're scared. You're not showing that you're interested. You're not showing that you're trying to talk to him. Like you just don't care. Like you don't hate him. You don't like him. You just don't anything him. Like you're just neutral. And so then you just drive on with your life. And if he tries to come back into your life or tries to just open contact, just be like, dude, like enough. Go away. Okay, I'm not interested in you. I'm interested in somebody else, or just leave it. I'm just not interested in you that way. Yeah. Ask the Young One says, everything is a manipulation to get fuel. They hate being ignored and not getting their way. He feels entitled to you. Yes, it's all a game. It's all a game for them. They're just bullies and they're highly manipulative and they just don't like it when the game ends, when it's not on their terms. And they will just throw everything out in order to keep the game going. They will bait and provoke a person to no end. They'll say, I would have expected more from you, or I didn't realize you were so immature, or I'm going to commit suicide, or I have cancer, or how can you do this? I thought you were a good Christian, or I thought you had forgive and forget, or oh, I didn't realize you were perfect, or oh, I guess I'm not good enough for you, or do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's no shortage of things that they're going to throw out to try to bait and provoke, and then they're going to wait until they hit on one that gets you to respond, and then they're reeling you in. So anticipate all of that and don't fall for it. You don't have to justify anything to anybody, ever, period. So let's see. I have a list of questions that people have emailed me. Wait a minute. I want to make sure. Did I answer Marie's question? Because she's tried posting it several times now. Okay, D is saying, oh, The Highlander, 1986 Russell Mulcahy film. I know it. Yeah, there was a series of Highlander films. I think there was like 3 or 4. There was a show, a TV show, for a long time. My brother and I's like favorite show one of them, when we were kids. And the Highlander guy is his name is he used to say it, and it was also a very bad Scottish accent. His name was Duncan MacLeod, and he would always say, "I'm Duncan MacLeod from the Clan MacLeod," and he would go around because like the Highlander, they had like they were these immortal beings, and then they had to go around like fighting these other Highlanders, and they would cut off their heads, and that was because there could be only one. I don't know how that series ever ended. Like it was just a really, I don't know. I don't even know remember the appeal of it was, but I remember it being a good show. So now that you've heard my really bad Scottish accent, I'm so sorry. Oh gosh, Hammond says, Dana, my narcissistic ex is telling people that I was abusive to him and that's why he cheated. I was so good to him. I supported him and gave him a house, a job, a family, and love, and now he's smearing me. What do I do? You do nothing. So, because the people that know you will know the truth. And the people that don't know you are probably going to be manipulated by him. So they can launch a smear campaign against your reputation, right? Against who they claim that you are. Anybody can do this against anybody at any time. A person's character, who you really are, the core of who you are, that will eventually shine through. And people with that level of problematic behavior, he's gonna continue to act like this. So over time, people are gonna realize, yeah, I think it's that guy that's the problem, not this other person, not these other people. So keep living your life. If anybody asks you, if they say anything, if they ask you anything, I would just tell them, I would just say it's absolutely not true. And if I would just like that, this is absolutely not true. I don't know, this guy's ridiculous and he's just talking a lot of trash and he's highly manipulative and he's freaking crazy. And this is why one of the main reasons we broke up is because he's crazy. So, and I would encourage people, I would like tell people that ask you this, I would let them know, look at my character. Look at my consistent actions over time. Ask other people about my character. Ask other people about my consistent actions over time. And then form an opinion about me. But don't go based off of what this like bitter and jaded ex-boyfriend has to say about me. Like that's not a fair picture of who you are. Nightingale asks, can you do more videos on your red flags on codependency? I can. You're the third person that's asked me that today. I need time. I need time to work on that. But that is a series I'd like to resurrect and finish for sure. There's so much in that series that I want to talk about, like trauma bonds and Stockholm syndrome and just kind of misconceptions, I think, about codependency, about just opening the conversation about that. A lot of people, myself included for a long time, felt that that word was very re-victimizing. So there's a lot of things that I want to talk about in that series, and points that I want to bring up. So yes, that we will be revisiting that series for sure. For sure. Postmodern says, yeah, we need more on trauma bonds. Yes, Miss Mash says they are so connected, the two. We dance and choose each other. Narcissists and codependents, I hear, choose each other. I think sometimes yes and sometimes no. Probably more often than not, it's a yes, especially when you have a person that's got more of that. This is why labels can be so tricky and sticky, because if a person doesn't like a label, then if they just shut down and they're like, nope, I feel re-victimized, then there's no, like, kind of any chance at communication or conversation is just over. That's the kind of the fine line I feel like I skate with codependency. But with that said, I'm just going to talk about it. So with codependency, if a person struggles with having healthy boundaries, if they struggle with knowing what deal breaker behavior is, if they have this attitude of commitment at all cost, that everything can be fixed given enough time, love, understanding, rehab, therapy, or religion, if they hang on to the bitter end, if they're staying with the person through thick and thin, through addiction and abuse and adultery and a persistently, bad attitude, and they're continuing to be treated with a lack of dignity and respect, and they have a pattern of that in their life, then to me, that's really that codependent mindset. That's a problem. Narcissists, emotional manipulators in general, they don't target just codependent people. They target anyone and everyone. They target supply. So they're after whatever they want in that moment: sex, money, transportation, housing, public image, social status, you name it. Whatever they're after, that's what they're after. And then, so they find the target and they're like, oh, wow, this person has money or social status or public image or what have you, right? So I want what they have. And so how emotional manipulators go about getting supply is they assess people for their vulnerabilities. It's very much like a child, really, because they're kind of stuck in that emotional development. So if a 6-year-old, right, or a 4-year-old wants a cookie or a toy or a bedtime story, they're going to approach different people that they think can meet that need. And then they're going to do whatever they need to do in order to get that person to give them what they want. So they might, when it comes to like, small children, because they are like, children really up until like the age of 30, like they're master manipulators. And they will, a little kid, they're so good because they're so darn cute and they know it. But they will just give you those big puppy dog eyes and just be like, well, I just really want a cookie. I'm just so hungry and I didn't eat my lunch and I know it's almost dinner time, but please, I'm so hungry, right? And they're manipulating like pity and sympathy and guilt, and or if they want a bedtime story, oh, but you're my favorite and nobody reads a story like you do, and then you feel like obligated, right? Narcissists, very much the same way. So they will know, okay, this this is where this person's vulnerable. So maybe they know, okay, this person, because they're just like social chameleons, they're social shapeshifters. So they might try, if they really want to get money out of somebody, right? They might try love bombing them with attention and affection. This is online dating scammers, right? This is what they do. So it's showering their target with saying all the right things and complimenting them and making them feel very loved. And they specifically will target, people that are older, people that are widowed, people that might be very overweight, where they're kind of thinking to themselves, okay, these people probably don't have a lot of, they're probably not getting a lot of attention from other on these online dating sites. And so they go after people that they perceive to be weak and to be vulnerable. And then they exploit that. They tell them everything they want to hear. So the trauma bonds, yeah, Truth Seeker is saying empty bucket phenomenon is what they intuitively exploit. And really, it's oftentimes not that hard. I mean, I think most people tend to have kind of along the lines of same vulnerabilities. So most people, it's generally, people are craving like safety, security, or significance, like it kind of those three things. And so, and we too, when we have an empty bucket, we're also filtering what they're doing through that lens. So if a person, if you've got an emotional manipulator that's showering a person with attention and affection, and they're saying all the right things, oh, you're so, they're so attentive, right? Like, oh, I'm going to bring you coffee in bed, and I'm going to cook for you, and I'm going to be so good to you, and we can just do whatever you want, and and I can and we can move in together, and we can have this amazing relationship, and I would love nothing more than to have a family, and blah 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 blah. If we have an empty bucket, we're going to hone in on, so really they're covering all of the bases, right? We're going to hone in on that area that we're running low on. So let's say if our house is, let's say we've lost our job. Okay, let's say, for example, here's maybe a more accurate example. If you've got a person that their previous relationship was with a narcissist, especially like an overt narcissist, like this person was an absolute selfish jerk and had a bunch of they were just a jerk from day one, right? They were rude to the waitress. They just kind of said a bunch of really brash, crass, inappropriate things, and they just became very critical and abusive, like pretty much right away, right? Like within the first month or so. A person's going to be more primed for a covert abuser who does all that love bombing and the future faking and the rushing of intimacy, and it has the exact opposite behavior of that overt abuser. So if a person's already experienced that highly problematic behavior in one way, and let's say that their ex was all these things, right? And they were married to this person, now they're divorced. So they're starting over. If this covert person, if they're talking about having a family and building a life together and that they can move in together, if you're coming from a place of, I have to move out of my house because I'm going through a divorce and I'm scared and I don't want to be alone and I've been married for 32 years, I have no idea how to pay bills. My ex handled all of that. If a person's starting out at this place where they just like are vulnerable and they don't know how to really take care of themselves, then the idea of, this whole Prince Charming or Princess Charming swooping in to handle all of that, that's what they're going to focus on. So to us, it might look like they know exactly what to say, but they don't really. They're just kind of covering all the bases. And then what we're doing is we're honing in on what's appealing about that, because we've got this empty bucket. And then, once they kind of realize, and then at that point, they're like, oh, okay, family is a big thing for her or him, or religion is a big thing for them. That's really important. Or affection. And then they know, okay, these are the strings that I need to pull in order to kind of puppeteer this person to get what I want. So, let's see. Yes, somebody asked, is it possible for a person to be covert and overt? Yes. So covert and overt refer to, it refers to behavior. And here's what's interesting about this is we all have our own understandings of what problematic behavior is. So for most people, overt abuse would be outright abuse. So like name calling or screaming or yelling or belittling or hitting. That's overt abuse for most people. Covert abuse is anything that's less obvious or like more hidden. So it could be, instead of being hit in the face, it could be being pinched or being tickled to the point where a person loses bladder control or is in pain, or rude or insensitive sarcasm or hurtful jokes, or subtle put downs or gaslighting. That's a really big covert one. Silent treatment, deflecting, countering, thinly veiled threats. For example, like saying every time you fight, then your partner's like, well, that's it. I can't handle this anymore. I want a divorce. Like if your partner continues to throw out the D word, that's a threat, and it's abusive. It's intended to get power and control over that person and their behavior. So like little things like that tend to fly under the radar for most people. The more aware you become of what abusive behavior actually is, like, because there's 7 different types, right? The more that a person's aware of like what verbal abuse is, it's not just name calling and it's not just yelling. There's silent treatment, interestingly enough, is a form of verbal abuse. Emotional abuse, psychological abuse, spiritual abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse, physical abuse, all of these different types of abuse. The more you become aware of it, the less like covert it is, and the more outright it is. And that's when it really becomes crazy making. So for a lot of people, it's very normal that once they start like joining different support groups or watching a lot of videos on this topic, and these lights start going on for them. They're like, oh my gosh, I experienced that and that and that and that and that. And no wonder this felt so problematic, because it was problematic behavior. It was abusive behavior. And so once your awareness increases, it becomes so much more obvious. And then people start seeing narcissistic or abusive behavior like everywhere. And then they start thinking like, oh my gosh, am I losing my mind? And it's like, no, you're not. You're just waking up. Because this, frankly, abusive behavior is probably the largest epidemic that's going on right now that hardly anybody's aware of. It's a big, big, big problem. And the damage it causes is generations. It's generational. I mean, it goes on for generations. So, so yes, a person, to answer your question, a person can have and generally does have both overtly abusive behavior and covertly abusive behavior. And generally, where there is overtly abusive behavior, there is also covertly abusive behavior. It's very rare that there's a situation where there's only like one type of abuse. Like it's very rare that there's only sexual abuse, or that there's only physical abuse, or that there's only financial abuse. Because in order for there to be abuse present, there has to be large amounts of like manipulation, which is psychological abuse, and there has to be, there's a lot of like brainwashing and just when a person's trying to gain power and control over somebody else, they want to do so completely. So they take advantage of them sexually and financially and emotionally and psychologically and physically, and it's just across the board. So I hope that answers your question. It's a really, really great question, and something that I probably think a lot of people wonder. Awe-seeking says, I still remember that light bulb moment. I was both ecstatic and devastated. Yes. Yes, totally. Let me see here. Here's some questions. I have people emailed me. So this one's from Kim. Kim asks, I have a question concerning my narcissistic mother. I would like to separate from her, but at the moment I am financially dependent on her. She is paying for my college, housing, and food. Although I am done in a year and a half, I cannot stand her abuse any longer, and I know that once I graduate college, she will do anything, including guilt and emotional abuse, to keep me in her possession. And she'll do anything to not let me move away for a job. I would like to start paying for my way now, but I just don't know how to transition, especially with me having loans, and I don't know how to tell my mother. I am willing to drop everything and start working for a little bit just so I can be out of her claws, but I'm so jumbled up right now, I don't know what to do. How do I become completely independent of her, even as a college student? Thank you in advance, and thank you for what you do. So, okay, Kim, I would recommend that you write out a list of options. So, and again, these are just all of your options. Doesn't mean that you have to pick any one of these, but let's just list out all of your options. Because once you start realizing, okay, this is everything that I could do, then you can start, narrowing down and actually developing a plan. So some options might be, you could go to the financial aid office at your school and you could look into what options they have as far as scholarships, grants, work study programs, student loans. You could apply for some of those. You could apply for student loans. You could see about working part-time, like at a work study through college, or you could see about working part-time in addition to going to college. You could see about working full-time. You could take a semester off and work full-time. You could get a credit card. You could take out a personal loan. You could get a roommate. You could move out and get a roommate. You could move out and rent a room with somebody that's looking for a roommate. You could, if you do decide to work and you do stay home, you could get a bank account, which I would recommend anyhow, and keep it private and start putting money in there. You could even do something like, and I'm just throwing out options. I'm not saying that any of these are good or bad or indifferent. I'm just throwing out options. You could do a study abroad. You could consider joining the Peace Corps. So there's lots of different ways that you could potentially get out of your situation. Perhaps, depending on like what appeals to you, right? So this is all about you figuring out what's right for you. Lots of people work part-time or full-time as they go through college. And, you could, if you're going to college full-time right now, you could consider maybe next semester taking a part-time load, or maybe taking taking one less class and then working part-time. You could work part-time and take out some student loans. I would encourage you to do what you need to do in order to keep yourself safe and sane. So if that means, if this environment, if you're like, I can't handle it here, this environment is not keeping me safe and sane, I need to move out, then I would encourage you to move in that direction. So maybe starting to explore some places that have a room for rent, and seeing about, again, like going to the financial aid department. Can you get some student loans? Realizing this is all temporary. Yeah, I'm not a fan of people taking on debt, but I'm more a fan of people taking on debt than I am of them actually staying in an abusive situation. So it's kind of the lesser of two evils there. Getting some loans, working part-time, even if it's 10 hours a week, doing something to start getting yourself on your feet financially, getting out of the house, and then preparing yourself emotionally, which it sounds like you already have an idea of what she's going to do. She's going to use most likely guilt and obligation and some sort of like emotional abuse tactics to keep you under her fist, right? Prepare yourself for that as best as you possibly can. This is what she's probably going to say. This is how she's going to try to make me feel. So once you're aware of that, then it's going to have less of a hold on you, because now you're seeing it. This is abusive behavior. This is manipulative behavior. I don't need to stick around for this. I don't owe an abusive person anything. And, like, just, it's okay. Like, it's okay to have boundaries and standards for how you're going to be treated. She's not going to like it. So prepare yourself for that, in kind of whatever that means. But you can do this. You can stand on your own 2 feet. You can learn how to do this. It's important that you learn how to do this. And, I really wish you all the best. So keep us posted. Let's see. Okay, here's another question from Anonymous. Are sociopathic or narcissistic people dangerous when their spouse discovers who they really are, especially when their reputation and career is on the line due to fraud or from being exposed? Are they capable of suicide? Yes. So anybody who gets exposed for fraud, right, can become potentially very dangerous, because their whole livelihood is being threatened. Their social status, their public image, their financial situation, their marriage, their everything. So to kick out the chair from somebody, nobody is going to react well to that, especially not a person who is a con artist, or who's used to having all of the power and control. So when you've got a narcissistic person who loses power and control like that, that's when that really does trigger like a huge narcissistic injury, because now the gig is up and they've lost power and control. They're going to be in a scramble to regain that power and control. So, could they potentially commit suicide? Yes. Could they also potentially commit murder? Yes. highly unpredictable people with very little empathy or remorse and a huge attitude of entitlement. That is like a trifecta of really problematic behavior. So I would, I would steer clear of that as much as possible and just do what you need to do in order to keep yourself safe in that kind of situation. Because now, not only are you dealing with a person that has very little empathy and remorse, and who feels entitled by their behavior, but they're on the verge of potentially losing everything. So they have nothing left to lose. So you're dealing with a potentially desperate, angry, unpredictable person. How do you protect yourself? Gosh, I think I would err on the side of caution. So, if whatever that might mean in your situation, if that's, I would carry some sort of protection with you. I would have 911 on speed dial. I would, I would just like take a different route to work. I mean, I just be very aware of your surroundings and be aware that if you're outing a person, especially to that kind of level, that you're kicking a bee's nest. And it's really a good idea to have a solid plan in place before this happens. Like, you don't want to kick that bee's nest and then try to figure out now what. So I hope that helps. Okay, Nightingale asks, who is more dangerous, a psychopath or a sociopath? That is a term. Those two terms, in terms of like DSM criteria stuff, there's no longer a differentiation. They're just under the term of like antisocial personality disorder. The core of a sociopath, the core of a psychopath, the core of is narcissism. So it's that level of entitlement. It's that level of lack of empathy, lack of remorse, exploiting other people. That's the core of like all of those. Any person can become highly volatile. If they feel entitled, if a person feels entitled to hurt other people, they should be considered dangerous and avoided at all costs, as far as I'm concerned. Like this was a thing, kind of like, okay, and I wouldn't wait. Like, I wouldn't wait till they have enough problematic behavior to then steer clear of them. When a person, it's the whole thing of like, when a person shows you their true colors, like, believe them. So if a person shows you that they don't care about like treating other people with dignity and respect, that's a problem. If they're okay with being abusive, especially physically abusive, that's a problem. If they are physically abusive, especially to animals or children, like innocents, that's a big problem. But I wouldn't get hung up on labels. I would really focus more on behavior. The labels part of it all was an interesting part of the whole Jodi Arias murder trial. I don't know if you guys remember that, but she was involved with a boyfriend who also sounded like personality disordered. Like a lot, I don't know, he had a lot of very strange, bizarre behavior. And she ended up stabbing him, I don't even know, like 60 something times in the shower. It was like this gruesome murder. They had this really volatile relationship, and she had been diagnosed early on as borderline personality. And then during the trial, they had the therapist on trial, and were saying, well, you would diagnose her as borderline, but clearly she's more antisocial. And like, I felt so bad for this therapist, because nobody knows that a person's gonna flip out and commit murder until they flip out and commit murder. So there might be some signs there. Her behavior was problematic, but it's like the label doesn't matter. It's the behaviors that matter. You know, so if a person's like making threats to kill somebody else, I would take that seriously. If a person has a history of violence and aggression, I would take that seriously. You know, any type of like, don't get hung up on labels. Because like Scott Peterson, Ted Bundy, you know, seemed like fairly regular, likable people. And they had this pattern of double life and problematic behavior. And I don't know if they would have, I mean, hindsight's always 2020. So now you can look back and be like, yeah, totally antisocial all day long. But like during that time, there was kind of these like little things that weren't adding up until then they finally, you know, committed murder or did what they did. Like with Scott Peterson, that's a good example of that attitude of entitlement. You know, he had this double life, total lack of empathy, total lack of regard, total lack of remorse. You know, killed his 9-month pregnant wife just because he wanted her out of the picture, because he wanted to go have a life with his girlfriend. And I don't think that there was any prior history of like violence or aggression. So yeah, I really wouldn't spend time like splitting hairs. It's interesting. It's interesting to figure out or to try to like research all of this. But at the end of the day, even researchers don't know. Like, we don't know because we're not inside somebody else's head. So all of the research that's out there, it's not fact. It's all theory. Because we're not inside. Like, psychology is not. It's not a hard science. It's a soft science, and that's why. Because it's all theory. It's not fact. It's not duplicatable. It's not, you know, not a hard science. And so at the end of the day, I think what's important is to focus on problematic behavior, focus on how you feel around problematic behavior, and to distance yourself and do what you need to do in order to keep yourself safe and sane. So, okay. Let's see. Okay, here's one from Eleanor. She says, "My name is Eleanor and I'm from Sweden. I don't know if you will read this or have time to reply, but I'll give it a shot. Somehow I came across your videos on YouTube about codependency and I recognized so much of what you said in myself. I've kept watching and agreeing with a lot of what you've said. I'm wondering, I don't see my exes as narcissists. I really don't think that they are. I know that they have a lot of problems, and that I've taken on and tried to solve. But like I've said, I've never seen them as narcissists. My question to you is, can somebody be a narcissist and not know it? Is that possible? Thank you kindly, and thank you for all of your videos." So it's very possible that they're not narcissists. You know, people can have problematic behavior for like a wide variety of reasons. What you're describing is, to me, sounds like, okay, these different men have all of these problematic behaviors that you've taken these behaviors on and that you've tried to solve them. This is what I call the baby bird with a broken wing syndrome. So it's like you see this, oh, this person really needs me. They need this help. You know, I can fix them. I can make everything okay. So yeah, highly problematic. I think it's something that probably a lot of us have been sucked into before. But back to your question is, can somebody be a narcissist and not know it? Yes, absolutely. Somebody can be a narcissist and not know it, just like somebody can be codependent and not know it. Just like somebody can be diabetic or an alcoholic or anorexic and not know it. So because we are our own baseline for normal. And if we've had problematic behavior for any length of time, if that's just normal for us, it's probably not going to register as a problem. So I think a lot of times when because, with narcissists, just like frankly with a lot of people, if other people have a problem with our behavior, oftentimes we're like, I don't have a problem. Like, you have a problem. I don't have a problem. But so it can be really hard for us to see our own behavior. Of course, it's a lot easier, right, to look at other people and be like, okay, we have crystal clear clarity on other people and their problems. And it's because we're not emotionally invested in it. It's so much harder to see problematic stuff in our own lives. And so these other things that I mentioned, like, being diabetic or alcoholic or even anorexic, people are like, well, how could you not know? Any problematic behavior, it generally always starts off slow and then it just kind of progresses. So if a person's been really narcissistic their whole life, to them, it's like, and of course, especially with them, if they're not experiencing a lot of pain with their actions, if they're always getting their way, then to them, no, it's not a problem. Like things are working out fine for them because everybody else is the problem in their mind. They always get what they want. But so it takes time for us to see that a problem is actually a problem. So yes, I think that there are a lot of narcissistic people running around out there that have no idea. Okay, let's see. Okay, so this is from Vin. He says, Dana, of all the articles I've read about narcissists, there is one part about hoovering that seems to be common. Here they explain how the narcissist comes back with a lengthy apology and fake promises for a happy future. But Dana, it's been more than 1.5 years since I stopped talking to her, and to date she hasn't even asked me what went wrong or why I stopped talking to her. Even when she hoovered, she pretended as if nothing went wrong in between us. Is this her way of invalidating me, or is her ego really that big? Both, I would say. So not all narcissists hoover, although and they don't always offer an apology or fake promises for a happy future. A hoover can be anything. A hoover can be anything that's provoking, basically. So it could be something like future faking or promising that they're going to change, or it could be something like, I'm going to kill myself, or I have cancer, or you're a bad parent, or anything designed. Merry Christmas could be a hoover. Like anything that's designed to open up communication is a potential hoover. So what you're seeing, the fact that she did hoover and pretended as if nothing went wrong in between us, they often do that. It's, how convenient, right? Like to just show up and let's just not talk about the elephant in the room. It's because they don't care. Like they don't care about the elephant in the room. They want what they want. So she wanted, whatever, money, sex, attention, to suck you in some sort of way. Either suck you back into the relationship or just suck you in enough to where you were annoyed or irritated, or she was able to use you for whatever, for that amount of time. But her level of nonchalance really speaks to her level of indifference and her level of emotional investment, which is none. Because people who actually, do care and are wanting a sincere relationship have sincere actions. They want to discuss these things. They have open, honest, sincere, solutions-oriented communication. They talk about the elephant in the room. They don't do stuff like this. So, and it's hard. It's hard when, Little Miss says, my ex tried to hoover me by saying, I told you that Trump would win. Yeah, it's always the same, like little provoking comments. And sometimes I mean, especially if they're nice, provoking, like happy birthday, Merry Christmas, those kinds of things, it can make us feel really petty for not responding. And it's designed to. It's designed to make you feel really petty for not responding. But it's definitely, it's that no-win situation. And this is why. It's just, oh God, like you just can't have happiness with a crazy maker in your life. Like, it's exhausting. Like, it's just exhausting to even think about, like, just the nonsense and the manipulations and just the triangulating and the pot stirring. And my God, like, it just, no, just shut the door, drive on. Okay, so here's one from Shauna. Shauna asks, how soon after you ended your relationships did you date? I haven't seen or spoken to him since a few months ago. Our therapist told us we needed to end it, and he did that very day. I have some okay days, but most days I am crying and unable to really function at the capacity I once did. It's been almost 3 months. I've tried support groups, but they honestly brought me down, and I was analyzing him all the time. I've tried therapy, but it helps for about an hour, and then I'm back to square one. I have no support and no friends anymore. The friends I did have were married friends of ours. I live in a tiny town where single mothers with a master's degree is not normal. I am not normal at all here. There are no meetup groups. I've checked. I'm planning a move after the school year. I have 2 sons and I have a job in education, which I love, but I can't seem to focus at all on those things. I joined eHarmony thinking, well, I'll see if maybe just going on a date will break me out of this cycle. Oh my God. I was like, nope. I bawled, cried, and only thought of him when looking at pictures of my potential matches. I feel like I'll never date again. I'll never have friends again. I'll never have sex again. I'm almost 39 and I feel like the biggest failure. I've lost everything but my children, which, don't get me wrong, I know that's important. Okay. How you're feeling is very normal. Very, very normal. So take that for what it's worth. But for me, after my first narcissistic relationship, I did not date for about a year. I went on one date with a guy a few months after that relationship, and the exact same thinking. I thought, well, I got on like Match.com. I met this guy. We went out for a drink, and that's when I realized that I was a hot mess, and I was paranoid and like just not at a good. I just didn't realize how messed up I really was from everything until that date. And then it was crystal clear. I'm like, oh my God, I'm benching myself. Like, I am taking myself out of the game. I need to get my head screwed on straight. So not only that, I really didn't have a desire to date for about a year. Not only to date, I just didn't have a desire for anything like sexual. Like, that part of me was just numb. And I just was very much into self-protection and mode. So it took me about a year. I think my guess would be is it probably takes most people about that long to where they can have some sense of normalcy in their life. 3 months is not a very long time. So just relax. Just relax. 39 is young. I know it feels like, oh my gosh, it's, because you're knocking on the door of 40. I am too. We're in the same boat. I get it. I totally get that. But in the scheme of things, you got decades ahead of you. So just relax. Just relax. Focus on building a life that you love. The last place you want to be at, like, you don't want to date out of loneliness or out of fear of being alone. That's going to wind you up in another highly problematic relationship because it's going to make you really prone for that emotional manipulator that's going to tell you everything that you want to hear, the love bombing, the rushing of intimacy, the whirlwind romance, all of that. So because if you're starved out in that area and you're looking to get that need met, then the first guy that comes along that's just, showering you with attention and affection and compliments and conversation, and it's just hours upon hours every day, it's going to be very easy to get sucked into that whirlwind romance. And the next thing you know, like, because those whirlwind romances turn into tornadoes, and then either they fizzle out and you're like, I don't even know where I am, or your life's blown apart. So you're better off slowing down and taking the time to build, to just heal from this, and then to move, because you want to move to a place you love. Take some time to get involved in that community and getting to know people and just getting settled. Just get settled. And the right people will come along at the right time. For real. So, okay, next part of that question has to do, and you're not a big failure, by the way. Like, you're not a big failure at all. You were in an abusive relationship. You didn't see it coming. Most of us don't. Now that you know better, you can do better. Now that you know some of these signs of problematic behavior, some of these signs of how these people go about manipulating other people, of how problematic behavior feels within you, you'll have a better sense of who to avoid. So, but you're not a failure, not by a long shot. Okay, next question she asks is, I've been thinking about taking an antidepressant, but I've resisted everything because of everything I've heard. I just don't know how to get out of this cycle. I want to forget him as I know he's forgotten us. And because deep down I know the awful things he said and did justified me leaving him the first time, but now I regret it. He was my children's father, not biological, but they loved him as one. And when we broke up the second time, he never looked back and blocked me. I'm just devastated. He was our lives. I know that was a mistake. I opened letters from him today from our first year together, and they were the most wonderful letters. How we were his forever and thanking me and so on and so on. I felt so special. Now I feel like I'm the biggest loser and I'm so old and I will never be in love like that again. Yeah. Well, okay. With medication, I think there is a time and place for medication, and that you need to do what's right for you. Like, there's certain lifestyle things that you can do if you want to start there. So like cutting out caffeine would be one. Making sure that you're getting exercise. Feeding your brain a lot of positivity. Taking time to relax. Doing guided imagery and relaxation videos on YouTube. Taking up yoga. Even doing yoga videos from YouTube. Those are some things that you can do to help during all of this. If you feel that you need to get on some medication for the time being, then go for it. Go for it. There's a time and place for these things. People that are very anti-medication, and I'm not a big fan of meds either. I'm not. But in my life, there have been times I was on antidepressants. After this last time, I waited way too long, frankly, to get on something, but they can really help. So I'm not on them anymore. It's just like, it's okay. Do what you need to do in order to stay safe and sane. If a medication is going to help you stay safe and sane right now, and that's the route that you think you need to go, then explore that route. I'd rather have you on an antidepressant than have you suicidal or so depressed or such an emotional wreck that you can't function. because it's important that you function. It's important that you're able to be there for your kids during all of this. It's important that you're not feeling so overwhelmed by your day-to-day life. So, okay. And then you're talking about, okay, you opened up these letters from him during that first year, and it was so wonderful, and you felt so special, and he was just, you guys were his forever, and he was thanking you. What you're describing is love bombing, okay? Love bombing is not the same thing as love. There's a big difference. So when you say, I will never be in love like that again, that degree of intensity is love bombing. And it's something that emotional manipulators do. And it's something, when we're on the receiving end of it again, especially if we're buying into it, it is incredibly intoxicating to think, oh my gosh, here's this perfect person and they accept me and my children unconditionally, and we're going to have this amazing life together, and they're so perfect for me and I'm so perfect for them, and we're so perfect together, and it's so perfect. And they're like this soulmate, right? This missing piece of the puzzle. These are all red flags. These are all red flags. So normal love is built on trust, which takes time. It's built on honesty. It's built on dignity and respect. It's built on open, honest, sincere, solutions-oriented communication. It's built on a connection that grows between two people over time. Love bombing is intensity. It's, love letters, it's promises, it's future faking. It feels so sincere, but it's not. But here's the thing, okay? Because that love bombing can feel really intoxicating. And I think a lot of people do feel like when they are out of a relationship with an emotional manipulator, they do get really bummed out because everything else feels very flat after that. Because they don't have the love bombing. They don't have that instant soulmate connection with another person. But that instant soulmate connection is not real. It's a red flag. It doesn't exist. This isn't to say that you can't have that level of amazingness with another person that's actually sincere. When true love is established between two people, that's based on trust and honesty and dignity and respect and open, honest, sincere, solutions-oriented communication, when all of that is present, the love, the connection that you feel with that person is going to be so much deeper than a love bombing connection. And you're gonna feel safe and secure and significant, and it's an amazing connection. It makes love bombing seem like the ridiculous behavior that it is. So, and you're not old. You're not old. We're not old. Like 39 is not old. So you really do. You have your whole life in front of you. You've gone through a lot. You can rebuild from this. You can. It sounds like you're very in transition. So I'm excited for you because I think you're at this transitional place. I would strongly encourage you, turn inward, focus on building a life that you love, focus on examining boundaries, because even if they were really great before, they're probably really skewed now, because that's what happens after we get out of a relationship with an emotional manipulator. So it's worth taking some time, examining that. I'm a big fan of like CODA groups, CODA, they're free, stands for Codependency Anonymous. Even if you don't identify as being codependent, they address boundary issues. And so this is something that's important to address and assess, especially after a narcissistic relationship. So I hope that helps. Let's see. Here's another question from, her name is I Love Art. She says, "Hi, you are so wise and you are adorable, and you are my new favorite person." I'm just kidding. She says, "I'm a 55-year-old woman and I have a 14-year-old daughter. I've been married to a narcissist for 18 years. My husband went to couples counseling with me and his own therapy. Since therapy, he has reduced his rages at me and my daughter over little OCD things that he used to do. It has been not great, but better since therapy. My boundaries and radar are better. There are still moments which are horrible and I get anxiety, and he drinks occasionally and smokes pot, not every day, but occasionally. After those bad moments, things quiet down and get back to normal. I could almost forget all about the bad things that happened previously. I don't feel close or affectionate towards my husband. The problem I have is not the problem I have is that I have not been able to leave. I am completely dependent upon him financially and have learned dependence due to getting sucked into his controlling nature. He does not cheat. He takes very good care of our house, our finances, etc. He does all of the cooking. I am dependent upon him for many things. He is unfortunately like my mother, where all my problems started. I cannot seem to leave, and of course, breaking up with anyone is so hard to do emotionally. I convinced myself to have sex with him one morning just to see if it would make me feel closer to him. It was terrible. It was as though he wasn't even there, and he was off in another world. I don't know what to do. Should I stay or should I go?" Oh, that's tough, right? And it's such a personal decision. So here's kind of my 2 cents on it. Having that split energy, that constant split energy of should I stay, should I go, should I stay, should I go, should I stay, should I go, that can exhaust a person emotionally and physically. So, because you've been in this situation for 18 years, because things are not good, but they're also not like awful, I would just encourage you to just shelve that decision. Just tell yourself, you know what? I'm going to stay for the next like 6 months. Okay. And so I'm just going to just, because you still have a lot to figure out. You have to figure out how you can be independent, how you can figure out survive on your own, all of these things. So making that knee-jerk reaction and being like, okay, I'm done, I'm divorced, I'm out of here, is at this point without some sort of plan in place is not going to most likely give you the relief that you're looking for in the situation. So this is why I'm saying I would just tell yourself, okay, I'm going to stay for 6 months so I can just get myself out of having that exhausting split energy. I'm going to shelve this decision, and then during the next 6 months, I'm going to do several things. I'm going to start journaling, okay, and I'm going to start trying to get clear on like everything about my marriage, about kind of what I'm looking for in my life, what are my options, how could I move forward. Just journal, 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 journal. Just getting as much as you possibly can out there so you can start examining kind of what's going on here, and exploring your options to the point where you can narrow them down and possibly develop some sort of plan. If therapy has helped and the rages are better, which is fantastic, then maybe I would, if he's still open to going to therapy, then I would say keep going, and see where you are. Because what's important for you right now is to find some peace in your life. And this is what I was talking about with like shelving this decision and being like, okay, I'm just going to just put everything on pause, going to turn inward, reconnect with myself, figure out what's going on with me and what I need to do to stay safe and sane. whether or not I stay or whether I go. Because if and when you do go, it's because, like you said, there is this huge emotional component, and it is hard. It's hard to break up with anybody, no matter how rotten they are, especially if you've been married to them for 18 years, because, you know, you do get in a routine, and there is comfort in that routine, no matter how dysfunctional that routine is. So, you know, finding some peace, getting a plan, exploring different options. I would encourage you to examine some different, if you have a therapist that you like, call them up again and see if you guys can come back for either couples counseling or if you can go back for individual counseling. They might be able to help you kind of explore some different options and just explore. Take the pressure off. Let's just explore. Just explore and see kind of what you come to. Because if you do get to the place where you decide that you want to go, it's really important that you're okay with leaving. That way there's no second guessing yourself, there's no doubt, there's no wondering, what if we would have tried XYZ? Like, you just know, like, this is my line. This is when I know enough is enough. This is like when I'm going to be okay with shutting the door on this and then walking away. Because nostalgia will kick in. There will be those emotional moments at probably holidays or birthdays or, random nights when you find yourself feeling overwhelmed and then wondering if you actually did do the right thing. So you need to be clear with yourself that you are in fact doing the right thing. And again, I've been mentioning this all night long, and I think it is so important. CODA groups. They are pretty much in any area. They are also online. They are free. They help people explore different boundary issues, as well as like different issues within codependency, but boundary issues mainly, and kind of like healthy ways of relating to other people, setting boundaries, re-examining boundaries, what healthy boundaries are, these kinds of things. And like I'd mentioned earlier, even if you're not particularly comfortable with participating in a group, there still can be a lot of value and benefit with like listening to other people's stories and their aha moments and how they've handled or not handled situations. So I hope that helps. And good luck to you. Okay, so here's one from Lilypot. She says, what can I do to stay strong during a horrific divorce with a psychopath? The abuse does not stop. Yesterday, he gave my attorney a new credit card statement that I had to review before court. On it, there were numerous charges to my favorite jeweler, flights to Canada, flights here and there and everywhere. I know at a gut level he did it intentionally. He lives out of state and has a car here, but leases a car when he's here. I know that he comes to town without my knowledge. He just won't stop. The court is trying to stop him from the financial abuse, but can't stop him from the psychological torture. He is a monster. When I got home, he had left a message saying I looked tired and stressed. I want to move and change my phone number and escape the madness, but I have to wait until our finances are sorted out, as he has hidden a lot of money and I don't have access to it yet. The judge knows and is trying to help me. I've won every motion, but I'm not certain that he'll ever agree. He's hell-bent on hurting me as much as he possibly can. I'm trying to stay strong, but it feels like I'm losing an uphill battle. I'm emotionally and physically drained. Okay, so the good news in this is that you see his behavior for what it is. That's huge. That's a big piece of the puzzle. So now that you see his behavior as him being intentionally hurtful and cruel, and that this is psychological abuse, right? And it's also emotional abuse. I would try as best as you can to detach emotionally from this. Easier said than done, I know. But some ways that you can do that is, but to keep reminding yourself, this is everything that he's saying is designed to hurt you. It's not real. It's not real. This guy is expending so much energy trying to bait and provoke and twist and spin and deny and deflect and do and manipulate and all of this stuff in order to get under your skin. Just like if you can see the nonsense for nonsense, and it's hard. I mean, it's hard. I get it. I get it when a person's caused you so much pain and they just continue to try to poke and prod and provoke. It's crazy making and it is exhausting. It does take some practice detaching from this. So there's some things that you can do. I think some things that help me and have helped, I think, a lot of people is to reframe how you see him and how you see his behavior. So something that you could do would be to picture him as picture him as a donkey, as a jackass with ears, with big ears and like big teeth and a big face. And whenever he's saying a bunch of nonsense, you can just visualize it as him just being like hee-haw, hee-haw, and just making donkey sounds. And it's just like that jackass is talking jackass. Like, I don't know what he's just jackassing up the courtroom. Like, he's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. It's just a bunch of nonsense. Immature, childish nonsense. And if you can like reframe that to where it's an image that's so ridiculous that it almost brings a smile to your face, then that will help, instead of giving him all of this power and being like, he's a monster, right? Because then that makes him intimidating and big and scary and like this Freddy Krueger type figure. No, he's not. He's a jackass. And he's immature. He's a bully, like a 4th grade bully. Shrink him down. He's not this mountain. It's not this uphill battle, this uphill fight that you have to win. This guy is not a mountain that you have to overcome. He's a pebble in your shoe. So to change your perspective of how you view this and view the situation. Not saying that what you're not going through is indeed problematic, right? But it can help when you're going through it to just play with how you're perceiving it to make it more manageable. Because if you're telling yourself that this is this huge mountain that I have to climb, that this person is this monster, then it can make this whole situation feel so much more intense. You can't change what you're going through right now, but you can change how you perceive it. And that's one of the ways that you can start to reclaim your power and control over the situation starting now. So even making that decision of, I am reclaiming my power and control over the situation starting now. Game on, jackass, game on. And just deciding. So part of that too is, okay, so now that you know that you're dealing with a jackass, to anticipate his behavior. Yes, total jackass thing to do. To show a credit card statement. How immature, right? To show a credit card statement, to be like, oh, I went to this jeweler, your favorite jeweler, and I went to your restaurant, your favorite restaurant, and I went on this trip. You're like, you love Canada, I went to Canada. Like, neener, 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 right? Like, hee-haw, 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 like stuff, right? It's ridiculous. And to see it that way, so when he acts like a jackass, you're not surprised. Of course he's acting like a jackass because he's a jackass. And that's how jackasses act. It would be weird if he acted like a mature adult. That would be weird. That would be cause for alarm. He acts how he acts because that's who he is and that's how he acts. You can, if you've got people... I'd also highly recommend getting into a support group. So if you haven't already, there's lots of them out there. there's links below in the description to mine. My website is thriveafterabuse.com. If you go to support group on there, it has information about, I have 2 support groups to tell people. So when you're going to support group, hey guys, I'm going to court. I've got to deal with him. You know, like you could really just try to like just run with this and be like, yep, okay, my guess is he's going to do X, Y, and Z. I totally bet I have $10 on the fact that he is going to bring his girlfriend to the next court hearing, or that he's going to then talk about this new Mercedes that he leased, and try to anticipate that. So if and when it does happen, he's not throwing you off guard, because he's getting his kicks by throwing you off guard. That's what they do. And if he can't throw you off guard anymore, then that's going to start to lose its appeal. Because it's his way of getting and keeping power and control over you and over the situation. If you really want to get under his skin, be happy. Be happy. Don't give him any supply. Just act like it's this pebble in your shoe. He's totally insignificant. Like totally doesn't even matter. Like you don't even realize it. You know, assuming that he's not dangerous. Like if he's dangerous, then I would be a little bit more hesitant for that kind of stuff. But when you're in court, take out, this is war. Like this is war. You're at war with a jackass. Like you can do this. You can do little things like taking out your phone and smiling and like messaging people in the support group. He doesn't need to know who you're messaging, right? Like 2 can play at this game. Like that's going to get under his skin to know that he's not getting under your skin. So, circling your wagons, getting support, talking to people ahead of time, practicing how you're going to react ahead of time, practicing not reacting. And frankly too, if I don't know if I were you, I would change your phone number, or at a minimum block his. So that way you're kind of eliminating a lot of the hee-haw as much as possible, because, ain't nobody got time for like hee-hawing. That's nonsense. So, changing how you see his behavior and how you see him, and just don't let him see you sweat, and focus on finding support from other people, and then trying, and I know it's easier said than done, but trying to make time to have, at a minimum, to ground yourself and finding some relaxation and peace in your life, but also taking the time to find some joy. And just making that declaration that you are not going to let this guy steal any more of your joy or happiness or ruin your life. This jackass don't get that. Like, you don't get that. No. Like, he took enough. That's done. That was yesterday. You were driving on. This is a new day, a new chapter. You're over it. You see this guy. He's a pebble in your shoe. He's a jackass. He doesn't even talk human. He just hee-haw. That's it. And I think seeing it in that way will help. I hope that's helpful. So, okay. Let's see. Gosh, I want to make sure I have. Okay, there's a gal. This is a long question, but this is from Dreamer 1. Kind of a long question. Long story short, she is not comfortable going to a psychologist or a psychiatrist due to some previous bad experiences. But she feels like she's really losing it. Can you tell me what to do? And there's a kind of been a pattern of problematic people in her life. She's realizing that kind of the wake-up call to this problematic behavior was from a person that she thought was a friend who ended up not being a friend, and it was a bunch of like love bombing and like creepy, weird behavior. It was very one-sided. She didn't fall into it, and because she didn't fall into it, he had called her therapist and that said she was suicidal, and it was just a bunch of craziness. And then she realized after that, when she began exploring what problematic behavior is, that a lot of her family members are pathological liars and arrogant and pushy and highly problematic, and she just is at her wit's end, and she's feeling like she's losing it. So, a lot of how you're feeling is very normal. It can feel like you're absolutely losing your mind when you wake up and you're like, I'm surrounded like by people with really problematic behavior, and yikes. So it's intense. It really is intense. I would strongly encourage you, if you haven't already, to get into, I would say, like a handful of support groups with not just you, but everybody, because different people are going to resonate with different groups differently. So get into a handful of different support groups. A lot of like narcissistic type support groups are very helpful. Again, codependency anonymous groups can be helpful with exploring boundaries and how to get those more in alignment. Because if we grow up in a den of dysfunction, our concept of like what's a healthy boundary, of what's appropriate behavior, of what's deal breaker behavior, of what's workable behavior, of all of that stuff is really, really skewed. And odds are we don't even realize to the degree of which that it's skewed because it's been our normal for so long. So that's the kind of the benefit of these CODA groups, because then the focus will be on you. Narcissistic support groups can be great for getting that validation and clarity of like what problematic behavior is, how it feels, how the cycle of abuse goes, how these things go down. It can help to really explore different types of like manipulative behavior. It can be a great place if you're, that cognitive dissonance, that like nostalgia is kicking in and you're like, well, maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe it's not this, maybe it's workable. To hear from other people that will tell you straight, and they've been there and they've done that, and they know the signs. So both types of groups have a lot of benefit in their own way. Another thing that I wanted to mention with a psychologist or a psychiatrist, they're people too. And I have also gotten tangled up with quite a few really bad ones. Like I've gotten some really like mind-boggling, awful advice from people that were not familiar with abuse at all. And I thank God I found a support group, because I'd still be there, and I'd not have any forward momentum in my life at all, and I would not be any closer to putting these pieces together. But with that said, a good therapist, a good psychiatrist, they can really be worth their weight in gold. It can be tricky to find one that's a good fit for you. And I think there's a lot of benefit to doing both, to having a support group and to having a therapist who's really, really, really familiar with the dynamics of abuse and power and control. So I think these two, it doesn't have to be like an either or, it can be a both. Because I think support groups are great for that, the daily thing, especially online support groups. They're 24/7. And so a person can get that validation and clarity whenever they need it. And so they can get a lot of immediate answers for things. And then once they do hit upon something, they're like, oh, that's something that I need to explore, or this is a reoccurring pattern. It can be helpful at that point to take that, and then if they do find a therapist or a psychiatrist that resonates with them, then to do a deep dive on those topics that they might discover in the support group, or vice versa. They might be with a therapist or a psychiatrist and come across different topics and then further explore them in a support group. So I think these two things can work together. It's very common for a lot of people to go through a handful of therapists before they find one that really is familiar with abuse and that can help give them the clarity and the validation that they're needing and that they're looking for. Let's see. Recovering Soul says, Dana, how do I defend myself in court if my lawyer dumps me? Oh gosh, that's a good question. I would see if you could find an attorney, ideally maybe contacting a domestic violence shelter, or even if you have a university nearby and seeing if if you can't afford another attorney, to contact them and see if they will do work on like a pro bono basis. If you mention that it has to do with like an abusive relationship, a lot of times attorneys will, or they will work on like a sliding scale. At a minimum, I would document everything, every single interaction that you do. I would treat it as if you would have to defend that in court. So paying particular attention to like what you're saying, how you're saying it, trying to get things in voicemails or text messages, avoiding in-person conversations, avoiding over the phone conversations, doing as much of a paper trail as you possibly can. And asking your attorney, if the attorney does dump you, if possibly they can recommend somebody that could handle your case, or that they would have. I don't know why, I don't know the situation, like why they would be dumping you, but again, like attorneys are people too, and so it's not all attorneys are created equal, and that's another thing. A person can sometimes get tangled up with an attorney that's really incompetent or rotten, like, or highly problematic, or what have you. So, let's see, trying to think if there's anything else for tonight. Let's see, let me get onto my Instagram account because I freaking love it. And then there's this great meme that I wanted to end with tonight. So actually, real quick, before I do that, if you guys have any questions that you want to make sure that I see, that you want me to try to address during the next live stream or a future live stream, you can email me, deardana@thriveafterabuse.com, and I will do my best to address them. So, okay, this quote says, "What would your life be like if you loved yourself as much as you criticized yourself?" I like that. Imagine. So there is so much right about you guys. There really, really, really is. And if you've gone through an abusive childhood, had abusive partners, abusive people in general in your life, realize these are people that say hurtful things. They do hurtful things. And it's not a reflection of you, even though it feels incredibly personal. Even if it's directed to you, it's still not personal. It's them. It's a reflection of who they are. Healthy, well-adjusted, happy people don't go around destroying other people. So it's not you. There is so much right about you. There really, really is. So you guys, be good to yourself. Pay attention to that inner voice. Pay attention to how you talk to yourself. Treat yourself with dignity and respect and love and compassion and caring and kindness and all of these things that you've been giving out to other people probably your whole life. It's time to give that to yourself because you're worth it, Okay. So you guys take care. I will see you next week, Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you guys take care. Lots of love to you. You are not alone. You are not crazy. And you really can move forward and heal from this. So take care. I'll see you next week. Okay. Bye.